If you've followed the snow sports industry in recent years, you know it's no secret that skiing and snowboarding have a high cost of entry. But while it's very possible to spend a salacious fortune enjoying luxury lodging and a posh on-mountain experience, it is by no means a requirement. Ski travel may never be bargain basement cheap, but world-class downhill experiences can be had without paying a royal sum, even at some of the most fabled ski mountains. So how do you get the best bang for your buck on your next ski trip? In this video, we'll cover the elements that go into the total cost of booking a typical ski trip, how to get the smartest deals in each of these domains, and how to preserve a high-quality vacation while doing so. If you find this information helpful, be sure to like this video and hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, where you can follow along as we travel around the peaks and share our first impressions before they ever make it up in our videos. And finally, if you're looking to re-up on camera and audio gear, we've compiled an Amazon list laying out our full suite of equipment. You can check out our affiliate page and support the channel by clicking the link in the description below. Before jumping into budgeting for a trip, it's helpful to understand the major factors that go into the total price of a ski vacation, and we like to break it down into 4 different categories: travel, lodging and food, lift passes, and gear. Before we dive into the specifics of these factors, let's start off with a couple of tips that apply to each of these domains. First off, book early. As one might expect, the longer you wait to make your plans, the more you'll pay. The trade-off is that it can be difficult to make a firm commitment too early in advance, and you'll have to weigh your risk tolerance for booking early against any desire to save money. Secondly, you can increase your cost savings the more flexible you are. Having a rigid lifestyle that only allows for holiday trips might make it more difficult to avoid paying top dollar, but if you have an unorthodox job or school schedule, you might be able to save 50% or more by booking a trip during an off-peak time. If you are sufficiently flexible, it might be worth playing with dates on a travel website and allowing the fluctuation of airfare and hotel rates to guide your travel timeline. If there's lower demand for these 2 major vacation components, there will probably also be fewer crowds. Doing this can also help you avoid weeks that may seem off-peak on the surface, but may be busier due to some sort of event or school schedule, such as the Sundance Film Festival in Utah or the Texas Spring Break weeks at mountains in Colorado and New Mexico. Although we'll consider each of these domains separately, it's important to remember that they are not independent of one another. Sometimes, cutting costs in one domain raises the costs in another. For example, staying further out from the resort might allow for cheaper lodging costs, but it might also force you to rent a car and pay to park at the resort. A mountain off the beaten path might have less expensive lift tickets and lodging, but it may introduce greater logistical complications and expenses just to get there. It's easy to get into the weeds amidst all the excitement of planning a trip, but don't forget to manage time as part of your budget. In addition to potential cost savings, an added bonus to doing a group trip is that someone else will hopefully be taking care of, or at least sharing responsibility for, many of the nitty-gritty trip logistics. This is probably stating the obvious, but planning a trip by car is nearly always going to be more budget-friendly than relying on flights. The cost savings scale with the size of your group. Carpooling vacationers can split driving responsibilities and the cost of gas, parking, and wear and tear. Of course, the feasibility of driving depends entirely on where you're located. If you're from New York City, you might opt for a day or 2 at a local hill or a road trip to Vermont. South Floridians, we're afraid to report, are pretty much restricted to air travel. When flying, the costs can add up. There's airfare, baggage fees, and transportation between your home and the airport. Then, once you land, you'll have to consider your options for getting to and from the resort. As before, renting a car scales. The larger your party, the smaller each person's share of rental fees, fuel, and parking will be. Depending on weather conditions, you may want to ensure that your vehicle has all-wheel drive. Rather than paying top dollar for this option with a rental agency, it may be possible to save money by using a car-sharing company like Turo. If you are traveling solo, renting a car might be a needless expense. In almost every circumstance when it comes to the Rockies destinations, and even at some East Coast and Tahoe resorts, there are more affordable options such as hiring a shuttle or taking public transportation, even a train. Either way, the earlier you book your transportation, the better. Members of credit card, hotel, or frequent flyer rewards programs can sometimes find phenomenal deals on flights, especially outside of peak times like winter holidays. Some programs also offer perks such as seat upgrades and free checked bags. Lodging and food are often very different vacation experiences, but from a budgeting standpoint, they often go hand in hand. A basic hotel room might decrease lodging costs, but it may force you to rely on sit-down or take-out meals for your entire stay. On the other hand, a vacation rental could potentially be more expensive, but it might offer amenities such as a full kitchen, allowing you to save on meal costs by buying groceries and prepping breakfasts and packed lunches. You can make a tasty sandwich or whip up a high-protein, electrolyte-rich trail mix for a fraction of the cost that you'll pay at the on-mountain lodge, and you won't lose any precious downhill time standing in the cafeteria line. And don't even get us started on dinner options. Most resort-adjacent restaurants will put you back $20 per meal at a minimum, but if you have a kitchen, you can cook a decent pasta dinner for the whole group for the same amount. A general rule of thumb is that the closer the lodging or the restaurant is to the slopes, the more you'll spend. Expect to pay a premium for the convenience of ski-in, ski-out accommodations or eating a slopeside lunch or dinner. Hotels and restaurants even a few minutes from the mountain still won't be cheap, but they can deliver a much better bang for your buck than those on the slopes. If you do eat lunch at the resort, another good rule of thumb is that food prices are more expensive at mid-mountain lodges than at the bases. Resorts need to account for the costs to ship food materials up the slopes, so you'll generally be paying a few dollars more for the exact same food if you stop in mid-mountain. Some resort towns also have simple, inexpensive hostels, which can be a great option if you need no more overnight frills than a roof over your head and a bed beneath you, and these can even be within walking distance of the lifts. These accommodations involve shared bedrooms or bathrooms, but if you're solo or in a small group, they can save you tons of money, even at the top of the line mountains. If this option is unavailable, you might want to look for a shared Airbnb space. Budget options like these often have full kitchens, but even if you eat out for every meal, you're likely to save more money than at any hotel or private vacation rental. If you won't have a car, consider how you will get to the slopes, shops, restaurants, and grocery store before you book a hotel, hostel, or vacation rental. Can you walk? Is there public transportation? A hotel shuttle? If no public transportation options exist, a seemingly cheap lodge option may metastasize into a monetary disaster where you're stuck shelling out the big bucks on a last-minute rental car. Lodging can book up fast, so the earlier you make a reservation, the better. Less expensive options will only dry up the closer you get to your trip. If you're not sure where you want to stay, but you want to secure a hotel or home rental, check the cancellation policy. Many places offer generous policies with cancellations allowed until the week or day of. Some ski resorts offer overnight parking. If you really want to stick to a budget, you might want to invest in a very warm sleeping bag and just sleep in your car overnight. When researching a trip, you might think about booking a package deal with a dedicated ski or snowboard travel planning agency. These entities often have access to special rates and promotions for select hotel, resort, and flight packages that the general public does not. So if you use one of these agencies, you'll save money versus the exact same itinerary if you were to book it on your own. However, travel agents are typically paid based on incentive structures that encourage them to book you on as expensive of a trip as possible. So cheap vacation itineraries booked this route are usually the exception rather than the norm. A travel agent might save you a few bucks on a high-end trip to the Montage Deer Valley, but they won't help you secure a room at the nearest Holiday Inn. If your schedule allows, you may find that the easiest way to travel to a mountain resort on a budget is to join a pre-planned group trip. If you don't know where to start, consider checking with your local gear shop or ski club to see whether any entities in your area sponsor arranged trips. The savings are especially pronounced if you're traveling solo, and especially if you don't mind rooming with a new shredding buddy. If you've been paying any attention to the ski industry in recent years, you'll know passes purchased at the ticket window are almost always a terrible value. The earlier you commit to buying lift tickets or passes, the more you'll save. In addition, the mountains you choose to visit will have a substantial impact on the price of your trip. Even if you're choosing between resorts in a similar region, one may have a much higher cost of access than the other. By the time you're watching this, the Epic and Icon multi-resort pass products have already gone off sale for the current winter season, and you either have one or you don't. It is still possible, though, to purchase day passes in advance and to reap considerable savings by doing so. The savings vary depending on mountain. For example, every Vail Resorts owned mountain has 3 price tiers depending on purchase time, and you're guaranteed the lowest lift ticket rate if you buy at least 7 days before your trip date. On the other hand, other mountains are demand-based, and you may have to buy your tickets at least 2 months in advance or earlier to get the best rates. A handful of mountains offer limited or no in-advance ticket discounts at all. Even if your schedule isn't flexible, third parties such as REI and Costco offer modestly discounted tickets for peak days at many mountains. Even some local ski shops offer discounted tickets to certain mountains. In addition, tickets are consistently much cheaper during the early and late seasons. However, conditions and terrain openings are much more variable during these times, so you're taking somewhat of a risk by going for these marked down rates. Finally, you can often get pretty sizable lift ticket discounts if you book lodging through the resort. That being said, these accommodations are rarely budget friendly unless you're visiting a smaller, more local hill. As you mull over buying a pass for next winter, here's something to consider. If your heart's set on skiing at a top epic or icon destination at all, it's almost certainly worth buying a pass product. Even if you only plan to ski a few days, Epic's Day Pass and Icon Session Pass products are essentially heavily discounted lift tickets that are good for most, if not all, Epic or Icon offerings. In addition, if you plan on a handful of weekend trips, products such as the Mountain Collective or Indy Passes, which offer 2 days of access to each of their respective partners, may make more sense than lift tickets. This all being said, do bear in mind that Vail Resorts and Alterra haven't exactly marketed these cheaper pass products out of the goodness of their hearts. These companies fully expect to recoup your lift access savings in lodging, parking, food, and other expenses. So just because you're skiing on a relatively cheap pass does not mean that your ski vacation will be inexpensive. You'll have to put in the effort to make it so. And also bear in mind that these pass products have increased substantially in popularity within the past few years. And if you book a trip during a peak weekend or holiday, you may find yourself skiing or riding amidst crowds of other pass holders who booked to get the same discounted rates you did. When it comes to equipment, renting or buying off-site is reliably the most cost-efficient move. You'll get a better price on gear at a local ski shop or outdoor retailer than you will at an on-site ski shop. And depending on the length of your trip and when you make the purchase, buying gear ahead of time can be even cheaper than renting at your destination. There are exceptional deals to be had at the very end and before the beginning of the season. If you don't have your heart set on any specific models, check your local ski shops and clubs for ski swaps. You can often find great, inexpensive gear that's only a year or two old. If you plan to rent gear, look for off-site ski shops unaffiliated with the resorts for the best bargain. They may well undercut a resort-owned rental shop even after accounting for discounts often advertised by passes such as Epic and Icon. As with everything else, you can sometimes save money by booking your gear rental ahead of time, although some local shops don't always allow advanced bookings. You'll do best by staking out the best shop for your needs a few weeks or a month in advance of your trip. And if you're a beginner, you won't reap the benefits of paying for high-end gear, so don't feel tempted to spend top dollar, yet. If you're flying, it's often possible to pack everything you need except for skis or a snowboard in a carry-on, even your boots. Most airlines consider a ski or boot bag pair to be a single checked bag, meaning that they're no more expensive to check than a standard bag. If you have an airline status that gives you free checked bags, you may be able to bring all of your equipment on a plane for no extra cost. And even if you don't, there are several airline credit card options that get you that status as soon as you open the card. While these cards usually have annual fees, they are often waived in the first year you have the card. You can then weigh the cost of renting gear at your destination against the hassle and expense of hauling it to and from the airport. Since everyone's needs and wants are different, the best place to start planning is to make a list of the things that matter the most to you. To best maximize both savings and trip quality, we recommend you stand firm with the items at the top of your list and be flexible with the rest. If that means standing firm at a specific resort, even if it's one of the most expensive in North America, there are still ways to save money. Maybe you've always dreamed of shredding the back bowls of Vail. Great, you just need to find ways to cut lodging and transport costs. Or maybe you hate Vail, or you're a less experienced skier or rider. In that case, a smaller resort with a more modest ticket price might allow you to stay in cozier accommodations. If you're a foodie, you may be perfectly happy staying in a cheap room while splurging a bit more on your meals. If you're into the opera scene, or you're a snowboarder, Alta is probably not your best bet. But if you're into truly extreme terrain, you may not be satisfied by Park City. Figure out what is most important to you and budget outward from there. And as always, our rankings and reviews are here to help you find the best mountain to fit your needs. You can find the latest iteration of our rankings in the description below. By making the right planning decisions, it's more than feasible to plan a high-caliber ski or snowboard trip on a budget. In essentially every circumstance, booking early and planning a trip with others will save you money without sacrificing quality. But even if you can't do either of these things, there are still plenty of ways to maximize your trip while still maintaining a great value. We here at Peak Rankings don't have access to the same deals as travel agencies, but we're more than happy to help you find a vacation that fits your needs and budget. In fact, if you want us to help you plan your next trip, feel free to shoot us an email, and we'll give it our best shot. If we get enough traction, maybe we'll have those travel agency rates ready for you next season. For more ski vacation tips and independent reviews of over 75 North American ski resort destinations, check out peakrankings.com. See you for the next one.